Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to everyone. Glad to have you here this morning. Always great to begin by welcoming all that you bring with you to our space, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that helps make you who you are. And this is true for those in the room with us as well as those who are streaming with us today. It's always great to have all of you. So welcome to one and all. I guess I should begin by saying Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Yes, happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers in the room, all of the mothers in our lives. And I think it's especially to remember at this time, given all that's going on in Ukraine and the rest of the world, that Mother's Day was really started in protest by mothers who were losing their children to war. And that's where this day came from. There are mothers all over the world that still gather together, join forces together to try to prevent the unnecessary loss of their children because of unnecessary war. And that's what's going on in the world today. So in addition to being grateful for the mothers in our lives, we think about how precious our children are around the world at every age. And the older we get, because I know I keep getting older, the more we realize our kids are always our kids at any age. So we think of all the mothers and the children on this special day. I also know it was a pretty tough week for us, given the news about the Supreme Court, the impending decision of the Supreme Court that is going to do its best to overturn Roe v. Wade. I wish there was some way to stop that from happening. I think it's been coming for a long time, and the way the Supreme Court was stacked recently, it seemed inevitable. So we will continue forward to do our best to promote our values in the world and try to use them to shape the kind of society we want, and hope this shift will be short-lived and a failed attempt. Anytime I address the issue of abortion rights, of choice, I often want to do with an open mind, trying to understand, where the other side is coming from. But I'm also a very logical person, and I don't understand how people can be vehemently against abortion while also being against sex education and contraception, and planning for parenthood for that matter. I have to ask myself, what else is going on? What are you really getting out of this? Is it a way to virtue signal a false love of life in what is otherwise a dismal record? Do we hear those same voices crying out for the children that are born, suffering behind the walls of Gaza? The more than 30% Ukrainian refugees that are children on this day, do we hear that same commitment to life? Jesus, he was often the so-called source for this belief. Never made an idol out of life. According to their scriptures, he says there are things more important than life. Sometimes the best thing you can do is give up your life for the things you believe in. And I didn't come to give life, I came to give abundant life. That people who are alive should have a quality of life. So if you're going to adopt a hammer-only approach to abortion because you believe in life, then show us how much you believe in life by caring as much about the living and the suffering going on in our country. A lot of children living in tents right now in countries all over America. So it's hard to buy it. It's hard to buy it. That they're doing this because they love life. It seems like you love authority. Okay. On that positive note. Yes, somebody had to say it. I did want to mention one more thing before we start this morning, to our streamers in particular. We're very soon going to provide you with the opportunity, those who would like anyway, to stream our services in a Zoom room, so you can be with others while you're watching the service, and then socialize afterwards. And we're even going to put a screen and camera in our fellowship area so people in the room can socialize during social hour with those who are streaming. It'd be nice to have a small cadre of folks who can host those Zoom meetings, and folks who attend both services, because we've got a lot of folks on the East Coast, or at least in the Eastern or even Central time zone, that would prefer to come to the first service than the later service, for obvious reasons. And then a lot of folks that like to stream with us during the second service as well. So if some of those of you who stream regularly would like to be, or be willing to be on a list of folks that can host those meetings, those Zoom gatherings, please reach out to me and let me know, so we can get this set up as soon as possible. And I know Terry Anderson, you agreed to help with that as well, so you're on my list. Okay, now you can take a few moments to greet one another, and be sure and say hi to those that you know and look forward to seeing each Sunday, as well as some that you might not get to see very often or haven't met at all yet. And if you're streaming with us, feel free to shoot somebody a text or an email or a quick call. Oh my goodness, I forgot the whole service and was skipping right ahead to social hour, so. I'm teasing. Well, we are going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found. Is that working for you, Jane? Good. Okay. Can you hear me better, Fran? Can you hear me better? Okay. I'll try to use that tone with you from now on.
If we wish to know about a person, we ask, what is his story, her real inmost story? For each of us is a biography, a story. Each of us is a singular narrative which is constructed continually, unconsciously, by, through, and in us. Through our perceptions, our feelings, our thoughts, our actions, and not least, our discourse, our spoken narrations. Biologically, physiologically, we are not so different from each other. Historically, as narratives, we are each of us unique. Oliver Sacks.
Please rise as you're willing and able to sing number 1026, If Every Woman in the World.
Every
sentiments in that song. Sentiments, I believe, the majority of people in the world believe and want and practice. So as we kindle our candles of care today, we will begin as we have been by lighting a candle for the people of Ukraine, for the people of Russia, and for many other people in that region of the world that are being most impacted by what's going on there. Also want to light a candle for church members Phil and Barbara Rodriguez. We got word this week that Phil is dealing with pancreatic cancer. And a candle of celebration for church member Owen Murr, who was a member of the recent honor flight to see the war memorials in Washington, D.C. So congratulations to him. I know he'll tell us all about that. And if you're ever on your way to Washington, D.C., let us know, and we will kindle a candle of care for you. Let's take a moment on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain our mission to the larger world.
Thank you for such a beautiful song, choir. Doesn't that sound nice? Well, on this Mother's Day, I want to tell you a story about an important conversation that Theodore Parker had with his mother when he was just 5 years old. Are any of you 5 years old? No. Used to be. You all used to be 5, yes. So his story takes place a long time ago, around the time of before the Civil War. Young Theodore was walking through the fields of his farm one day, absent-mindedly swinging a stick through the tall grass. It was summertime, and a gentle breeze cut through the warmth of the shining sun. He stopped to watch the water bubble in the creek. Then he noticed a turtle sunning itself on a rock. He'd seen other boys use their sticks to hit turtles and other animals. It was part of what the children thought was fun. Oftentimes children, and grown-ups too, are copycats, mimicking the behavior of others who seem bigger or stronger than themselves. Young Theodore wanted to be like the older boys he'd seen, so he raised his stick into the air, taking aim and preparing to knock the turtle off his rock into the water. And then something stopped him. Something seemed wrong about the situation. He looked again at the turtle, quiet, peaceful, enjoying the summer day just as he was. Had the turtle ever hurt him? Was the turtle so different than himself? Slowly, he lowered the stick and walked home, thinking about what had happened. When he arrived home, his mother was there to greet him, and he told her about the incident. She listened very carefully to Theodore, and listened especially carefully when he related how some strange force inside him had stopped him from hitting the little animal. "Theodore," she said, "that force inside you was the voice of conscience. Pay attention to it. Follow what your conscience tells you. It's your moral compass that points you in the right direction. And if you honor your conscience, you'll never go wrong in our world." He followed his mother's good advice and became a champion of the defenseless who need defending, fighting to end slavery and increase women's rights. He was an inspirational Unitarian minister who felt a kinship with the whole creation. And it all started one summer day when he was just a child who saw a turtle and decided to do what was right.
How do you live in the world on a daily basis in a lifestyle that has to deal with both sides of the coin of thinking, positive and negative, both sides of the coin of feeling, pleasure and pain, and both sides of the coin of being, human and divine?
My reading today is number 15 from the Tao Te Ching. The ancient masters were profound and subtle. Their wisdom was unfathomable. There is no way to describe it. All we can describe is their appearance. They were careful, as someone crossing an iced over stream. Alert as a warrior in enemy territory. Courteous as a guest. Fluid as melting ice. shapeable as a block of wood, receptive as a valley, clear as a glass of water. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? The Master doesn't seek fulfillment, not seeking, not expecting. She is present and can welcome all things.
Listen to the wind. The wind speaks wisdom. Listen to the stars singing joy. Listen to your heart. The rhythms teach you love. She will teach you love. Listen. Listen to the sea, crashing with courage. Listen to the rain, for the song brings growth. Listen to the snow, snow will teach you peace. She will teach you peace. Listen, listen. Listen to the trees, speaking mystery. Listen to the sun as the thunder rolls. Listen to the dawn will whisper more. She will whisper more. Listen to the wind, listen to the wind, listen to the listen to the
Thank you all so much. It's beautiful today. It's fun for you? Oh, yes. Well, good. Why was it fun? What makes it so? Oh, okay. Yeah. So, it's a very happy. Yeah, I can tell you're beaming. You're beaming. You know, it sounded great, so thank you. Some of you may be familiar, a bit at least, with some of the stories in the Hebrew Scriptures. I want to talk about the beginning of the story of the Hebrews. Just 3 months into their 40-year journey through the wilderness, the Hebrew people received their marching orders, so to speak. That's when the story says Moses received 10 commandments while on a mountain in the desert of Sinai. The very first command, the starting point of the religion of a people who were at the very start of their journey, is stated as follows. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no strange gods before me. You shall not make to thyself any graven image, nor the likeness of anything that is in heaven above or in the earth beneath, nor of those things that are in the waters under the earth. You shall not adore them nor serve them. The very first commandment is a warning against idolatry, the crafting and worship of fabricated images. Given what the story tells us about this entity, it makes sense that it doesn't want us worshiping objects. As Exodus goes on to say, by day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light so that they could travel by day or night. This is astonishing imagery that the God of the Hebrews are following is nebulous and ever-changing. That's what clouds are. Nebulous, always morphing, shapeless things with no clear beginning or ends. And fire changes so quickly it became the element that Heraclitus chose to represent his philosophy of constant change. You may recall this shapeless entity first appears to Moses in the form of a burning bush, and later as proof that it is actually speaking to Moses, it tells him, I'm going to come to you in a dense cloud so that the people will hear me speaking with you and will always put their trust in you. So we can understand how such a nameless, nebulous, ever-changing entity might not wish to be objectified, and would warn those who wish to follow its guidance not to worship the well-defined objects and images crafted by their own hands and minds. This is why the very next commandment, the second step, is you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not leave him unpunished who takes his name in vain. The concept of God is so nebulous that it is considered wrong to speak as if we understand it, and egregious to claim we know its mind and its will. This is why when Moses first asked for its name as proof that he's actually spoken to it, the entity says, I am who I am. This is what you shall say. I am has sent me to you. And the better translation of the Hebrew word is not I am, but I will be whatever I want to be. Or simply, I am becoming. Like a cloud, like fire. I am becoming something else. Always. This is a being that refuses to be put in a box, to be confined by definition, to be theologized, to be turned into a graven image. This is a very different idea of God than the one at the heart of many religions. This shapeless, changing God that doesn't wish to be defined, named, or even spoken of. Right? It's one of the 10 Commandments. It's a sin to even speak of God. The opposite of this is idolatry. The erection of false gods constructed by our own hands and minds, be they constructed images, theological dogmas, or creeds, or just the things and beliefs we craft for ourselves in everyday life, then cling to them as if they were the objective truth. For truth in reality is like the entity guiding the Hebrews through the uncertainty of the desert, nameless, shapeless, changing, with boundaries so soft and shifty that we cannot tell where it begins and where it ends. But when we forget who this command is coming from, right, the nature of this being that has no definable nature, when we forget that, then we justify our idolatrous thinking by accepting only the first line, have no other gods before me. The opposite of the very first step it suggests is necessary for our spiritual journey. Alas, when we begin this way, when religion and life are based on idolatry, that is, upon the false certainty that our ideas are right and that our ways are right, and that we know what is true, and that we know the mind and the will and the words of God, its name, shape, and unchanging ways, then we can justify a life and a religion of intolerance, of self-righteousness, and of self-delusion. There's another story in the Hebrew Scriptures about a man named Micah who is obsessed with silver. So much so that he steals 1,100 shekels from his own mother. When she discovers his betrayal, Micah returns the silver, which the mother then consecrates to Yahweh, which is, by the way, is not the name. It's just 4 dots that symbolize this thing we can't name that English has added some vowels to, so it makes sense. We're hooked on phonics. So she consecrates it to Yahweh by having some of it melted and turned into a graven image. I don't know where she got that idea. And Michael worships the idol that she fashions, makes a shrine for it in his own home. At first appoints his son to be its priest, and then he hires an actual Levite, an actual priest, to oversee his self-constructed religion, which pleases him to no end. Until one day, when 600 soldiers from another clan pass through and take everything. The idol, the scriptures Micah had carved into stone, the priest's clothes, and even the priest takes the whole church. Upon discovering what has happened, distraught Micah convinces as many of his friends and neighbors as possible to go out in pursuit of the soldiers, hoping to retrieve his idol. And when he catches up with them, they ask what the matter is. Micah says, "You have taken my gods, which I have made, and the priest, and have gone away. What more do I have? So how can you say to me, what's the matter with you?" But Micah and his friends are vastly outnumbered, and once threatened with violence, they must return home with nothing. End of story. I believe most, if not all of us, have at times been like Micah. Constructed an idol or two in our own hearts, our minds, that we worshipped and felt compelled to protect. Enough to go to battle over. Convinced of our holy right to hold on to the subjective opinion we have held out as objectified and ultimate truth. That we have turned into an idol, that is. And these are not always grand idols either. They may be no more than the objectification of a whim, a momentary feeling, a flight of fancy that we feel compelled to make real by forcing others to acknowledge and accept it. If not, we feel threatened by and angry at them for not agreeing with us. We are right and therefore righteous, and by not acknowledging the hard and certain reality of our idols, they have wronged us and must be forced or manipulated into seeing things our way, which our idolatry deludes us into believing is really God's way, the truth. The story of Micah's idol reminds me how ready we can be at times to abandon democracy itself to maintain our idols in the way of life we have centered around them. Donald Trump and those who still deny that he lost the election based entirely upon the idolization of Trump and his unsubstantiated claims against the empirical facts is like Micah and his neighbors running out to do battle against an army. The votes are against them. The votes are against the idolization of their false truth. They're outnumbered. Sometimes that's what democracy looks like. At least Micah finally realizes the situation, the reality of the situation, and leaves before he's killed and his neighbors are killed. Trump and some of his most extreme devotees are still in denial that their idol has been removed from their house, in this case the White House, and will not be returned. But in 23 years of ministry in a liberal religion, I have seen this same phenomenon often occur in our own communities, which by definition are supposed to be devoted to democratic principles. Still, occasionally one or two individuals, maybe a handful, don't necessarily agree with the outcome of a community's decision or the decisions of the community has authorized to make decisions, like a board of trustees or even a minister, and they feel the decision is not democratic. Now, democracy is not perfect precisely because some are almost always going to be dissatisfied with its outcome. That's how it works. That is a problem. It's not perfect, but as Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. Sometimes people disagree with us. Sometimes we don't get our way. But that is not always a moral crisis. When enchanted by the things and truths we create for ourselves, our tendency is to project them outward into the world as if they are substantive and real. That's what idols are, an attempt to make real what exists only in our hearts and heads. They are distorted attempts to resolve life's perennial problems, its questions of truth, the desire for certainty and the avoidance of doubt, the wish to know the difference between good and evil, to fully grasp the underlying nature of reality, and to know for sure the meaning of our own purpose in life. They are an attempt to feel certain in our uncertain world. But these perennial problems are like the nebulous entity guiding the Hebrew children through the wilderness. Nameless, shapeless, shifting, indiscernible. That's why they're perennial. Few can bear living life in such a fog of unknowing as mystics in the mist and mystery of our existence. It's more comfortable to delude ourselves and to reinforce our delusions by forcing others to revere our idols just as much as we do. Many of us, like Micah, succumb to such pressure. Remember, Micah started off taking his mother's silver, perhaps to fashion an image of his own making. But in the end, she makes the idol for him, which he dutifully accepts, brings it home, and makes a religion out of it. How many of our own ideas, the beliefs we hold most sacred and are most convinced of, the ones we're most convinced of, were fashioned by somebody else, passed on to us, perhaps by our elders. One of the most profound statements I've ever heard is at the beginning of William James' classic book, Varieties of Religious Experience. Although it was first published in 1902, Varieties is still considered the seminal source for understanding religious experience. Imagine how astonishing it is then to read that at the very start of this 400-page, 10-point font book about religious experience, that the only time he will mention any of the world's major religions is when he says, I'm not going to be mentioning them. I speak not now of your ordinary religious believers who follow the conventional observances of his country, James says, whether it be Buddhist, Christian, or Mohammedan. His religion has been made for him by others, communicated to him by tradition, determined to fixed forms by imitation and retained by habit. Fixed forms. That's just another word for idol, which is why James refers to a life based on them as a second-hand religious life, because it does not represent one's own authentic experience. So in one sweeping sentence in this seminal work on religious experience, James dismisses them all. He says, because he says it would profit us little to study them. For James, most religions are an idolatrous attempt to turn another person's subjective experiences, subjective, authentic experiences, into an objective reality that can be re-experienced by anyone. Be it the experiences of Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or somebody else. Let's make those beautiful truths they taught us a religion that we can industrialize and pass out like wafers. But I'm not, again, talking strictly about religious beliefs. I'm talking about how many of us instinctively react to the world in this way in our everyday lives. Here's the process. It begins, like everything else, with stimulus and response. Just as photons cause minute responses in photosensitive single cells, any sort of experience causes a response from us. Anything in our environment causes a response, whether we're aware of it or not. Although our responses are much more complicated than a photosensitive cell. This is what Kierkegaard meant when he famously said, truth is subjectivity. Truth is subjectivity. Not that there isn't an objective truth, or at least an empirical reality outside our heads, let's put it that way, but it is not possible for us to fully understand it outside of our own subjective experiences of it. We experience reality subjectively. Even if there is an objective reality, we can't help but experience it subjectively. Over the centuries, we have developed a few mechanisms for helping our subjective understanding of the world jive just a little bit more, perhaps, with objective reality. Science, logic, empiricism. These are nice tools to check our biases. But even then, whatever we experience is subjective, and our limited understanding, or I should say, subject to our limited understanding, to our psychological state, and to our emotional and our ideological biases. This is why it's better to let the mystery be. To learn to wander about the wilderness with a mindset of awe and wonder, walking humbly with our nameless, shapeless, shifting God, than making a hard idol out of our own beliefs just so we can feel safe, secure, and certain in a sometimes unsafe, insecure, and always uncertain world. That's why the beliefs that make us feel otherwise are delusional, because they don't represent what the world really is. But again, this isn't just about grand religious and philosophical ideas. It's about the ordinary tendency to have a subjective experience, then to objectify it by making an idol of it through projection. Right? We're projecting our opinion into the world, our subjective experience, and finally then to moralize it. Subjectify, objectify, moralize. Subjectify, objectify, moralize. That is the process. The example I often use is a very simple one. Two friends come out of a movie. Now, while inside the theater, each has undeniably had their own subjective experience of the film. Right? They sat in silence, they watched it, it impacted them. Then outside, one says, "That was a great movie." To which the other responds, "Are you nuts? It was terrible." As the conversation continues, their disagreement worsens to the point that they end up angry with each other. Right? We get mad at each other over whether or not we like the movie. Notice that neither begins by describing their subjective responses to the movie and leaving it at that. Right? They don't say, "I didn't enjoy it" or "I enjoyed it." Instead, they immediately describe their subjective experience in objective terms, as if their feelings reflect something objective about the movie. It was great. There's something tangible about the movie that is great. Or it was terrible. There's something tangible about the movie that is terrible. This is a very simple example of idolatry, of making an idol out of an idea, an emotion, an experience. And this is usual. This is our process much of the day. Subjectifying, objectifying, moralizing. Even as something that should be as non-confrontational as a movie, a piece of art. When we speak of our subjective experiences, our internal responses to external stimuli, we tend to immediately objectify them by speaking as if what we are feeling indicates something empirically true about the world around us. That movie is terrible. Brussels sprouts are gross. Star Wars is better than Star Trek, when we all know it's the other way around. I am right. You are wrong. I am righteous. You are a heretic, an infidel, a traitor, dangerous. And it is this moralization of our projected subjective experiences and beliefs that make idolatry such a negative force in the world. It is the idolaters who make life miserable for the rest of us, as they work to codify their subjective feelings by manipulating or forcing others to recognize them as true. And in the age of social media, the ability to make idols out of our lived experience is easier than ever. By allowing millions of individuals to share every random thought and personal feeling they wish with people who are actually referred to as their followers. Those with lots of followers are called influencers. In his recent Atlantic article, After Babel, How Social Media Dissolved the Mortar of Society and Made America Stupid, social psychologist Jonathan Haidt explains that initially these social platforms were relatively harmless, and they were just basically extensions of the mail system to deliver communications. But gradually, he says, social media users became more comfortable sharing intimate details of their lives with strangers and corporations. In other words, millions of us are now willing and able to easily project some of our most personal feelings, beliefs, and experiences outwardly into the world. To me, social media is like stream of consciousness, which is why I don't use it. Too many demons, I'm not letting them out. You can't see them. The more likes and shares they get from others, the more real and therefore true these subjective experiences become to us. The empirical or logical quality of our experiences and opinions isn't even a consideration. Only how many others seem to like what we share. That's what makes it real. Do people like what I said? Subjectify, objectify, moralize. This, I believe, is how we go about fashioning idols out of our emotions. We have a personal feeling caused by external stimuli, like a movie. We then objectify the feelings by articulating it as an external truth. It's a terrible movie. And then we attempt to force our new objective truth or our dogma onto others by moralizing our opinion. Since you disagree, you can find your own ride home. Since you disagree with me, you are not democratic. Since the results aren't what I wanted, the system is rigged. Since our candidate lost, the election was stolen. Yeah, doesn't need any evidence of it. Just likes and shares. Likes and shares. Makes it real. That should be the new Velveteen Rabbit, right? Ask the skin horse, what makes one real? How much you're liked and shared. What's that? You're a nobody. Yeah. You don't do it. Good. Yeah. But again, I'm not really given this sermon to rebuke election deniers, but to help each of us understand how quickly, easily, and thoughtlessly we can fashion idols out of our own emotional responses to the world. To mistake them as truth, and then to make the lives of others miserable by forcing or manipulating them to accept our objective truth, which is really our own subjective emotional responses to the world around us. In the process, we also delude ourselves, living an inauthentic life, be it a secondhand religious life, revering idols fashioned for us by others, or simply because we would rather deceive ourselves than to face life on its own terms. And if we don't face life on its own terms, we're delusional. And we're missing something. We're missing life. Worst of all, again, is choosing an idolatrous life is a life of deception. we miss out the best part of existence. It's mystery. It's awe and it's wonder. It's novelty. It's mountaintop experiences. The wonderment in wandering through the wilderness, through its wildness, and its mouth-dropping astonishments that occur only when we let go of our need to feel certain and be in control. That's when the most beautiful experiences in life happen to us. When we're not worshiping the idols. The joy of letting go. The calm of letting be. The relief of letting others. The pleasure of letting them enjoy it their way. The love, the kindness, the peace. These are the emotions I most enjoy. Emotions that I cannot idolize or cling to or control or force or manifest. But I know where I am most apt to find them. Out there, in the mist, in the mystery, in the cloud of unknowing, beckoning us to follow it and let it guide us through the wilderness of life. Look, and it can't be seen. Listen, and it can't be heard. Reach for, and it can't be grasped. This is the essence of wisdom.
I really love this next song. It's called I Can See Clearly. It's by Johnny Nash. And it's from way back in the 60s. Please stand if you're really unable. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me down. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue sky. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
For the benediction, the words of Carl Sagan. Each one of us is, in the cosmic perspective, precious. If a human disagrees with you, let him live. In 100 billion galaxies, you will not find another. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.
Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom.